My name is Sierra Chen. I'm a trauma surgeon. And the day my plane landed back on the California coast, my phone lit up with a text message that felt like a surgical cut, without anesthesia. Sold the anchor for $10 million. Thanks for being abroad. It was from my little sister, Kira. That house wasn't just property. It was the last piece of my grandmother's legacy. The one place I'd promised to protect while I was spending years in the world's worst disaster zones. I didn't even wait for my luggage. I rented a car with shaking hands and drove straight to Big Sur. Replaying that text, trying to convince myself it had to be a joke. But as I turned onto the familiar winding drive, my stomach dropped. Our historic oceanfront villa looked like a construction demolition site. Trucks jammed the driveway. A crew was ripping up the century-old redwood deck, like it was nothing more than scrap wood. If you are listening to this right now, tell me, what is the one thing that would make you cut off your family forever? I read all the answers. I slammed the car door and marched up the path. Hey, what are you doing to my house? I shouted. A man in a hard hat didn't even flinch as he yelled orders at his crew. To them, I was just some random woman yelling over a $10 million job. Someone, in a crisp, expensive blazer, finally walked toward me with a polite, practiced smile. The kind of smile that says, I have the paperwork. You don't. In that second, the freezing clarity hit me. This wasn't a prank. Somewhere, on a stack of documents, my sister had used my name to erase me. When family mixes love with greed, the horror story doesn't start with a ghost. It starts with a text. The woman tucked her clipboard against her chest. Can I help you? She asked. Her voice smooth but guarded. I lifted my chin, drawing on years of speaking clearly in operating rooms where mistakes cost lives. Yes, you can stop tearing apart my grandmother's house. This property belongs to my family. She blinked once, then glanced toward the construction crew, as if calculating exactly how much of her time I was worth. This property was purchased 6 weeks ago. We have a recorded deed and a full sales contract. Who exactly are you? I'm the owner. I shot back. My name is Sierra Chen. Something in her expression shifted. She motioned me toward the porch, away from the dust and the noise. That's interesting. Look, I don't want a scene. My buyers wired $10 million for this place. We were told the sale was urgent, that the other heir had already signed everything from overseas. My stomach flipped. What other heir? Your sister, she said carefully. Kira. She said you'd agreed that you were too busy on humanitarian missions to deal with the paperwork. My throat went dry. It was one thing to get that text. It was another to hear a stranger recite my life back to me like a sales pitch Kira had rehearsed. The woman unlocked a leather folder and opened it just enough for me to see the top page. My full legal name stared back at me in bold print. Sierra An Mei Chen above a line labeled seller. And beneath it, in clean, confident ink, was my signature. Only I had never signed it. I felt my pulse hammering in my ears. If my fake signature had made it onto a deed, that meant county records, banks, title companies. Everyone believed I'd willingly sold my family's legacy. It was a crime. Pure and simple. I forced myself to speak calmly. If that's really my signature, I said, then someone is in a lot of trouble. And I think you and I are both about to find out exactly who. I turned and walked away. I couldn't stay there. I drove. Not to a hotel, but straight to the county courthouse. The image of the leather folder burned into my brain. I needed proof. Official proof. This house. The anchor. It was more than just $10 million. It was the only thing left of my grandmother. When I left for my first mission in Somalia, she held my hands in that living room. Promise me. Sierra, she said, her voice frail. No matter what you see out there, no matter how much the world breaks your heart, the anchor will always be here for you. It's the only promise you ever have to keep for me. That was the weight of the promise I carried into every war zone. I paid the taxes. I managed the maintenance from thousands of miles away. I kept the lights on, And now, Kira had sold my promise for cash. I needed those documents. I needed to see exactly how far she had gone to break my world. Inside the records office, fluorescent lights hummed overhead, while a clerk typed my information into her computer. "You're looking for the deed transfer on the Chen Beach property," she confirmed. I nodded. "Anything related to its sale in the last year. And I need copies." She printed out a thin stack of papers and slid them across the counter. To her, they were nothing. To me, they felt like evidence in the murder trial of my trust. I stepped aside and flipped through the pages. There it was. Purchase and sale agreement. Seller Sierra. Unmei Chen. Buyer a shell corporation named Shoreline Acquisitions LLC. My chest tightened as my eyes dropped to the bottom. The signature line carried my name in fluid. Practiced strokes. Identical to the way I'd signed medical licenses 100 times before. It looked like me down to the slight angle in the... "This is a forgery," I whispered. The clerk looked up. "Ma'am. This signature. It's not mine." "The documents were notarized," she replied, her tone turning cautious. "There's also a witness and a notary seal. If you believe there's fraud, you may want to speak with law enforcement or an attorney." I kept reading, following the legal jargon, until something else snagged my attention. Witness Caleb Vaughn. My vision blurred. Caleb Vaughn. The man who'd held my hand and promised to build a future with me. The man who said he supported my decision to work abroad, even if it meant distance. The man who had been a high-profile real estate broker in the area for years. I traced his signature with my fingertip. He hadn't just watched my sister steal from me. He had used his professional license and influence to sign his name beneath it, giving the forgery the weight of officialdom. I snapped photos of every single page. My movements were precise now. Almost surgical. This wasn't just a family argument anymore. This was conspiracy. Forgery. Fraud, words that came with prison sentences. As I walked out of the courthouse, I texted my oldest friend, Brielle Vance, who was now a corporate defense attorney. "I'm back. It's about the anchor. Call me now." I met Brielle at her office an hour later. The courthouse copies spread across her dining table. "Kira sold the house without me," I told her. "These are the papers. That's my signature. Except it isn't." Brielle leaned over the pages. "You're sure you never signed any remote power of attorney forms? Nothing for her to act on your behalf?" "I'm a surgeon, not an idiot," I snapped. Then softened. "Sorry. I would never sign away that house. I would never break my grandmother's promise." Before Brielle could answer, the front door swung open. Kira stepped inside. Sunglasses perched on her head, phone in hand. "You texted me. Emergency," she said to Brielle. Then spotted me. Her smile froze. "Wow. Look who finally came home." I slid one of the contracts toward her. "You want to explain this?" For a split second, pure panic flickered in her eyes. Then she rolled them and let out a brittle laugh. "Oh my God. Is that all? I thought someone had died." "Sierra? You're being dramatic. We sold the house. It was sitting there, empty. A $10 million liability. And you're never even here. You're always swooping into disaster zones overseas to save strangers." She shot back, her tone sharp. "But I'm your sister. And I was right here. And you didn't see me drowning?" The words stung, hitting on a deep, unspoken fear that my dedication to my work had cost me everything at home. But they didn't excuse what she'd done. The silent cost of self-reliance was high. But I refused to let her weaponize my absence. "You didn't ask for help, Kira," I said quietly. "You helped yourself to what wasn't yours." "Where's the money, Sam?" I asked, using the familiar childhood nickname one last time. $10 million. Where is it?" She crossed her arms, her composure cracking around the edges. "Invested. Managed. It's complicated. You wouldn't understand." Brielle cleared her throat, pointing at the bottom of the page. "If this was all so legitimate, Why is there a notarized signature from someone who clearly wasn't present? And who happens to be a licensed broker? Kira's gaze darted down to Caleb's name. He said he was helping us streamline the process. He was cutting through the red tape. You didn't cut red tape. Kira. I cut in. You committed fraud. Now tell me the truth. Where did the $10 million go? Her jaw tightened. She stared past me at the polished marble floor. Gone, she whispered. My stomach lurched. What do you mean? Gone. Debts. Okay, she snapped. Do you have any idea what it's like drowning in credit cards? Failing business ventures. People calling at all hours. I paid off everything. Some of it was mine. Some of it was Caleb's. Some of it was people you absolutely do not want to owe money to. $10 million doesn't go as far as you think when you're putting out fires. You stole a house to clean up messes you never told me about, I said. Incredulous. You could have come to me. I would have helped you plan. Negotiate. Anything but this. I knew it. Kira mumbled. You would have helped me plan and negotiate. You would have acted like the responsible older sister. Given me a budget. And told me I was irresponsible. I needed a fix. Not a lecture. I gathered the papers into a folder. My decision solidified with every breath. You didn't just cross a line. Kira. You broke the law. And I'm not going to let this slide because we share DNA. Brielle and I spent the rest of the day in her office, putting together the counterattack. This was the shift from family drama to legal strategy. Here's what we know, Brielle stated, her voice becoming entirely professional. Kira forged your signature. Caleb Vaughn used his broker status, and likely his firm's notary seal, to legitimize the sale. That's a massive breach of the chain of custody for forgery. She explained the severity. When a notary or a broker acting as one says they witnessed you sign, they are certifying your identity. If Caleb certified your signature without you being physically present, he broke his fiduciary duty and committed professional fraud. He wasn't just a witness. He was the mechanism Kira used to give the forgery legitimacy in the county records. I nodded, my mind working like a surgical theater during a critical procedure. So the buyers were lied to. The bank was lied to. The title insurance was lied to. Exactly. That title insurance is what will save your case, Brielle confirmed. They have the most to lose, so they will fight the hardest to prove fraud and unwind the sale. Our job is to give them the evidence that they can't ignore. I had already taken the first step. I've drafted an email for the sheriff's office, I said. It includes copies of the deed and Kira's own texts. I'm not waiting for a lawyer's letter to scare her. I'm starting a criminal investigation. Good, Brielle said, a rare smile touching her lips. Because the buyer's money is gone. The sale is void. And someone needs to pay the price for that $10 million hole. And Kira won't be able to sign her way out of this one. 2 days later, we met at the Anchor. This was Kira's idea. Let's talk where it all started, she'd texted. As if this were some sentimental sisterly disagreement instead of a $10 million felony. I brought Brielle with me. And I'd already emailed the copies of the forged documents, the bank records, and the detailed breakdown of the title insurance fraud to the sheriff's office. I wasn't leaving anything to chance. The construction crew had paused work, citing a clarification of ownership issue. That was the polite legal term for the new buyers. Didn't want to be anywhere near a fraud investigation. The house looked wounded. Half-finished repairs. Exposed beams. Plastic sheeting fluttering in the salty Big Sur breeze. It felt like my grandmother's ghost could have walked out at any moment and demanded to know what we'd done. Kira waited in the gutted living room, arms folded, tapping her foot. She looked exhausted, no makeup. Dark circles. An edge of rawness that didn't match her usual curated perfection. Can we be adults about this? Sierra, she finally said. Adults don't forge signatures, I replied, my voice level. Adults don't steal a $10 million house. She rolled her eyes, but didn't fully meet my gaze. You're blowing this out of proportion. I had everything under control until you decided to make it a criminal case. You committed a criminal case, Brielle muttered under her breath. I set the evidence folder on the counter. Here's what I know. You sold the anchor for $10 million using my name and a forged signature. You involved Caleb Vaughn as a fake witness. Lied to the buyers, the bank, and the title company. So I'll ask again, where's the money? Kira finally cracked. Gone. Gone where? Debts. She snapped. Vegas losses. A failed launch party. Credit cards. And people you don't want to owe. 10 million disappears fast when you're drowning. You stole a house instead of asking for help, I said. You rescue strangers overseas but didn't see your own sister sinking. She shot back. You never asked. You took what wasn't yours. Her shoulders sagged. If you report this, I lose everything. I could go to prison. You should have thought of that before you forged my name. A deputy and a sheriff entered moments later. The sheriff reviewed the documents, the statements, and Caleb's admission that he never saw me sign anything. All 10 million had gone into Kira's account, then scattered to gambling and creditors. Kira turned to me in panic. Tell them you don't want charges. Tell them this is just a misunderstanding. I told the truth, I said. I never agreed to sell this house. The sheriff read the charges: fraud, forgery, theft by deception, and placed her under arrest. As the cuffs clicked, she whispered, Sierra, please, we're sisters. We were, I said, before you sold me out for $10 million. 6 months later, the court voided the sale. The buyers were refunded. Ownership returned to me. And Kira was ordered to pay restitution. She had no money left. Her license was suspended. And a plea deal gave her a felony record. Probation, counseling, and years of debt. I rebuilt the house and rebuilt my life. On a warm summer night, during a gathering with friends, I saw Kira standing outside the gate thinner, humbled, wearing an ankle monitor. I wanted to see the house, she said quietly, and say I'm sorry. Sorry doesn't undo what you did, I replied. You forged my name and turned our grandmother's home into evidence. Do you hate me? She whispered. No. Hate means you still take space in my head. I'm done letting you own anything of mine. Can I ever come inside again someday? That depends on who you become. Right now, no. She nodded, accepted it, and walked away still, outside the one place she tried to steal. And I stepped back into the life she couldn't rewrite. Finally knowing the house and my peace belonged solely to me.